Hey, welcome to another show of the Cowboy Experience. I'm Eric Sims, your CX Cowboy, and I'm excited. Today's episode, we are actually visiting the Foyt Vineyard and Museum over here in Fredericksburg, and I have the honor of having Larry Foyt on the show today. Larry, thanks for having us out.
Hey, thanks for coming, man. Good to
Yeah,
see
man.
you.
Like as we make our way through Texas on the show, one of our goals is to always, connect and find very interesting and unique places to meet people, have conversations, do interviews, and capture. And obviously, your family and your history with this, with the racing industry, and with the vineyard, and with just Texas in general, was something we felt very fortunate to be able to tap into for this episode. So, we always really kind of start with a little bit of background with people, like. There may be three or four people out there that haven't heard of your family, and so maybe just give us a little background on where you were born and raised, and obviously what it was like, kind of growing up in a racing family
Yeah.
like that.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, grew up in Houston, Texas. So, my father being AJ Foyt, so arguably the best race car driver ever. And so yeah, it was an interesting childhood. I didn't really realize it at the time. Biologically, he's my grandfather. A lot of people ask that because he's 89 years old, And so uh, I'm getting up there. Shoot, what am I, 47 now? So I'm getting there. But yeah, so lived with him ever since I was a baby, and he adopted me, so I call him dad. But growing up was pretty normal. I mean, I was into the stick and ball sports, and even though every year I did go to the Indy 500 and
Yeah,
see Dad compete in that, and that, in itself, it's the largest single day sporting event. 350,000 people there, and to as a young child, kid, basically walking out with him, he'd always wait for me to go over to the track with him,
yeah,
and to hear the people screaming, give him hell, AJ, go get him,
yeah,
AJ. Like as a kid, it was pretty powerful. So it was something that he didn't want any of the kids in racing, but as I got older, I was like, why can't I do this? And I
yeah,
and I started to kind of poke those and prod a little bit to see. And my mom just said, well, go. You need to show him how bad you want it.
yeah.
And so I did. I kind of quit all my other sports, and I went to the race shop. And Jack Starn, who's still with us now, been with us 55 years. He was my dad's crew chief at the time, and said, "Look, if you want to work here, you'll start tomorrow, and you're the new janitor, and we're going to start there." So,
Yeah.
and it was tough, but it was great. And then from there, got a go kart and got racing. But yeah, just really special growing up with him. Obviously, as a when I was young, he wasn't around a lot because he was racing.
Yeah.
So he's on the road often. But yeah, finally I got going, and it's led through a lot of different ways and paths back to here.
Well, that's I think we were talking a little bit before we started today. Like it's always a unique dynamic, father-son dynamic, right? And I think it gets exaggerated in instances where you've got someone who's as iconic as your dad, right? Like the shadow's even larger to live into, or to get out of, in sometimes, right? And to really become your own person. And you've done that, but I'm sure along the way you've had some bounces around of like trying to deal with that, and maybe just share a little bit about what it was like, trying to get into racing, and actually just going through your kind of formative years with that.
Well, I think it's definitely a double-edged sword in the sense of when you have that name, it's going to help you in a lot of ways also, right? It's going to open doors. People are going to talk to you as that wouldn't have talked to you if your name was just Joe Blow, right?
Yeah,
But you walk up with that heritage and you're looking for sponsorship, it's a help,
yeah,
absolutely. But oh man, I remember the first go-kart race I won out in Katy, Texas. I didn't know he was there. It was my second ever race, and I won the race, but I'd made a pretty big mistake and spun in the middle of the race. And I'm in victory lane. I'm all happy. And I see him, and he comes up, and he chewed me up and down and
yeah,
telling me what I did wrong. I was like, oh, man, if I really want to do this is going to be a long, a long
yeah,
career path. But and that's just how he was. I think his success came from, he grew up in the Heights in Houston and really had nothing. He was working at his dad's mechanic shop when he was a teenager, and I asked him one time. I said, "Dad, what made you think you really wanted to be a race car driver?" And he said it was December in Houston. He was under a car doing an oil change. He said it was freezing and that oil was dripping on my forehead. And I said, "Man, I'm going to be a damn good race car driver because I don't want to do this,
yeah,
my whole life." And that was it. I mean, he's told me there were times that him and mom and my oldest brother Tony, when they were driving to races, and if he didn't win, they might eat an egg and have some milk, and if he
Yeah.
won, they got hamburgers. Like it was a different world, and but it's amazing that he's changed with the times as much as he has of what we're doing nowadays, because it's
Yeah.
very different.
Well, and it's the background of, like, kind of rags to riches stuff. People get to see the end result, right? They see the quote empire that you guys have built together, through his racing and through your talents and everything else. So when you were coming up and decided to race, was it? Or I know you were doing go-kart racing, but you had mentioned, like, you went off to school and did some other stuff too. Like, it wasn't like you just started racing when you were 10 and didn't have other things going on.
No, I mean there are other racing families that I think have been that way, that they help, like say the Andretti's.
Yeah.
They get the kids going young. Dad just didn't want any of us to race. There were a few of us that showed interest in it, and he just always felt like, look, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Don't think my success is automatic, because it's not. Like any professional sport, right?
Right.
There's only so many spots for a lot of people that are talented that want to do it. So I got it, and he said, I'm not going to help you unless you go to college and graduate. Maybe I'll think about it. So I did. I went to TCU. I mean,
Okay.
had a great time.
Horn
Loved it. Horn
frogs.
Frog.
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved Fort Worth. Enjoyed my time there.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun.
So you were
And
there. You would have been at TCU, like, during the big transition with the football team and all that. Because that when LT was there,
So it
or
was
is it?
exactly when LT
Okay.
was there, because yeah, it was really cool. We both got sponsored by Radio Shack, so I saw him a few years later down the road doing some other stuff. But yeah, LT was there and got to see the big changes. But unfortunately, like on the weekends, I was going racing. I was
Yeah.
still going racing a lot, so I missed a lot of the games. I've probably seen more games lately. A couple years ago, I went all the way with them.
Yeah. I was say it's been exciting.
So
Being a
yeah.
Horn Frog fan's been exciting for the last several years.
No,
They
it
really
really
they
is. No, it's been fun. I mean, it was great. I had a great time. Like I say, love Fort Worth, love TCU, just a great community. Had some friends who went to SMU, and they loved that. And
Yeah.
obviously, I thought UT or things like that were too big for me.
Yeah.
Just coming up and wanting to be racing on, and TCU was perfect. No, I
Yeah.
really loved TCU.
Well, it's a fantastic school. Obviously, I grew up in Fort Worth, so I told you before. I was like, I felt like I kind of, as a young child, I was at that place quite a bit.
But man, it's changed so much. Yeah, I took my wife a couple years ago, and I was like, "Let me go show you where I bartended freshman year. It's gone.
Yeah.
Let me go show you
Yeah.
this. It's
Fort
gone."
Worth is
Yeah, I mean,
dynamically
just
changed. Yeah.
dynamically changed. But
It's a
no, really
it's
grown.
it used to be a small, big town, and now it's bustling and
Right.
and really thriving. So you got done doing that, got ready for, you really just made the decision, I'm going to go all in with racing, and maybe share a little bit about, like, that, because that's it. Again, it's a professional sport, man. It's not easy. Like, less than 1%, get to do this in any capacity, much less being successful. So can you walk us through a little bit, like, just what that was like, going into that full time early on?
It was. I mean, it was kind of like once I got going and I had a little success. A friend of mine, his name's Mike, out of Austin. Well, Dripping is where he lives, but he owned a big sprinkler company. He was my first major sponsor and helped me get to the next level out of go-karts, and we won some races there, and things just started going very quickly.
Hmm.
Graduated from TCU, and I was ready to go racing, and what happened was it was a lot like golf right now. So where professional golf had that split, Indy with Live and
Yep.
PGA, IndyCar had a very similar thing, and no one knew what was going to happen. No one knew what the future was. So my dad was like, "Look, if right now it's better just go NASCAR racing. It's just more secure at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen." But my heart was with open wheel cars and IndyCar. But that's how I got hooked up with Harris Casinos and
Okay.
started and went to the NASCAR route. And it was a lot of fun. But my heart was always in Indy cars. But yeah.
Yeah. So you've done all of it, right? I mean,
Done a lot of all of it, yeah, and then ended up, just moving on. The NASCAR stuff was fun, but I got a chance to race at Indy a few times, loved it, but I did have a pretty bad crash there, broke some vertebrae in my back, and my dad called and he said, "Look, I'm getting older. If you want the team to keep going, here down in Houston, you should move back and run the business." So that was a tough decision, but I knew it was probably the better thing for me to do, and that's what I ended up doing.
well, I mean, one, outside looking in, the fact that AJ had enough confidence in you to call you up and say, "Hey, like, I know you love racing. I know you're doing well at this, but taking on and running the family business is a pretty big honor in and of itself as well." So that's pretty cool. So before we skip out of the racing age, like, a couple of just kind of random questions there that I'm always interested in. So what's your favorite track? Like, what was your favorite place to race at?
Well, certainly Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's just nothing like it, in the world. It is the greatest race course in the world. It is so big. I mean, it's just you don't even realize till you're there. So if you've never experienced, you have to go
Okay.
because when you walk out there, it is literally like a gladiator walking into arena. There are people around you for 2.5 miles, and it's just unreal. So that is just something to experience. And outside of that, Texas Motor Speedway was kind of my home track, so I
Yeah.
liked I liked racing there, and had some fun racing there in the stock cars. So, but yeah, Indianapolis just that's a special
Yeah,
place.
that's the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like
is. No, it is.
that's the big show. Okay, so you got done doing that. AJ asked you, your dad asked you, hey, can you take over the family business and run point on that? And so, what all does that involve? Because it's not just, hey, we got some guys that are driving race cars. Can you make sure that we pick some good drivers?
Well, people that know AJ will know he was basically hands-on in everything,
Yeah,
right? So there's the films of him falling out of races and he'd stop and work on his own car, right? Like I mean those days are gone, but that's just how he was. So I didn't know how it was going to work with me coming back. I was very nervous. I mean, we had our arguments as my process of me coming in. I was like, I've got to modernize this team. You see it with a lot of greats. They get and how can you argue with them when they win everything, right?
right. Yeah.
But they don't. You see it. They don't want to change stuff to some of the modern stuff because they won doing it this way.
Yep.
And but he's been amazing because he raced in front engine cars on bricks at Indianapolis to these rear engine ground effects cars that like as you'll see the one he retired in over there. I mean, amazing technology changes that he went through
Right.
even in his own time. So he was really good about it. We had our fights and our battles as fathers and sons do, and but no, it's been really great. I mean, I've loved every minute of it, and yeah, it's awesome that he's 89 years old and still comes to some races, and we just want to win and make him proud.
So today, how many drivers do you guys have out there
So we
today?
have two. Yeah,
Okay.
we're in the IndyCar series with Santino Ferrucci and Stingray Robb,
Yep.
and in fact, I was here. We'll talk about some wine,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, that's why we're here at the Foyt Winery. But I've got to catch an early flight in the morning and get to Mid Ohio. We're racing in Ohio this weekend, so
Nice.
excited about that. So it keeps me busy.
Yeah. So keeps you on the move. So good stuff there. And so yeah, to move to the winery. So and I'm sure you guys have your finger in a lot of different stuff, but this being one of them. And for a lot of people that may not live in Texas, they might think, wait a minute, you guys are at a winery in Texas. What's that all about? And so maybe just share a little bit. Like we're in Fredericksburg, so for those of us who are around here, we understand what that means. But it's undergone a massive modernization and transition as well. So maybe share a little bit about Fredericksburg and why Fredericksburg for you guys that you put it here of all places.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, my dad was always a bit of an entrepreneur. I'm sure I got some of that from him. I mean, he had car dealerships and small parts of sports franchises, things like that. So he was always doing stuff as well outside of. He's always been the horse racing business. Loves horse races. So I don't know when I quit from driving and just doing the business stuff, and my nephew quit about the same time, and we were talking about stuff. We're like, well, let's do something for fun. What do we both like? And we're like, well, we both like wine. And it was just one of those things that started out as a hobby that grew to a business. And we were making California wine because that's what we enjoyed drinking, but we never, we didn't have the money to go buy a big place out in California or do something like that. But a friend of mine who's in the insurance business down here said, "Hey, have you been down to Fredericksburg? I'm representing some wineries. You need to go look at what's going on. The quality's getting amazing. The town is growing like crazy." And yeah, shot down here. And man, I was like, oh, I get it. This place,
Yeah.
I rolled into town and you just feel your blood pressure go down. And, it's just such a lovely place to be, the Texas Hill Country, and what the wine community down here is awesome. So, yeah, that's what we did. And I just felt like we had part of our thing was when we started the wine, all the wines typically tell a story about our family or especially things AJ did and accomplished that we want to continue that legacy and let that live on. And man, that's why I wanted to do this museum that we're kind of sitting in. Is just we had so many cool cars that people don't get to see, and I was
Yeah.
like, people would love to see this stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of just where the idea came from.
That's cool. I mean, you've been able to blend all of this together as it would be here. And you bring up that there's funny stories. So a couple of your guys, when we were coming in, like we've already been talking to people, and so one of the questions I was told to ask was about Texas Justice. One of your wines called Texas Justice, because there's apparently a really funny story behind that with you guys.
There was, yeah. If you watched IndyCar in the late '90s, you probably saw our. We had the Dallas race where my dad got into a little altercation with a driver. We thought we won the race. He thought he won the race and came in victory lane. And there was a little bit of action going on. And I was actually still living in Fort Worth at the time, still at TCU. And I'll never forget, I was up spotting that race. So I was actually on the radio with the driver, kind of his eye in the sky, if you would. And mom and dad were driving me back to campus that night, and it was all over the radio. And
Yeah.
finally, my dad just turned off. My mom's, I hope you're happy. Your son goes to school here, and they're talking about you hitting somebody everywhere we're going. She said, I hope you're proud of yourself. So it was. So we call it Texas Justice because AJ kept the trophy, and they had to make another one for the other guy. So AJ has always said, come and take it.
Come and take it. Got a little bit of Texas Justice. So there's some funny stories behind all that stuff. That's good. And so the wine you guys do here and the ambiance you've created, to go with that is pretty unique. What's your favorite wine out of the wines you guys have on your list?
So I love our big cabs. I'm a kind of a Cabernet guy. I like whites as well. I mean, I like a lot of different wines, but we make some really great Napa Valley cabs.
Okay.
What's fun is we were just in meetings yesterday with some Texas growers about getting some Texas fruit. We're planting, but as we've planted some rows out here, some Tannat. We're going to plant some more wine in the front here, but it just takes some time, and
Yep.
we really want to get some start exploring the Texas wines and making some of that. So that'll be happening soon here, but we'll probably always keep, we've been in the California wine business almost 2 decades now coming up. So
Yeah.
we still love Texas, California wine, but loving what Texas wine's doing and trying to make some of those varietals be a lot of fun.
That's cool. So you'll be able to have your own, localized vineyard as well, and maybe do blends or whatever it is at that point in time when you get
Absolutely. I
those
mean, that's the
things.
thing with the wine business. You can go a lot of different ways with it.
Yeah.
So, if you find we're actually not in California, we're not a grower. So we do what's called we buy fruit and then we make it at the facility. So, more of a winery than a vineyard. But here we are planting some grapes, and in time I think we'll use them. But man, there's a lot of great Texas fruit and a lot of fruit from the high plains, and that's what I think we'll be playing with here soon. So
Yeah.
you have to come by and try some Texas wines with us.
So I'll ask you a question. I ask a lot of guys and people that we have on the show, because I think it brings a different dynamic. And it hit me when I moved back. Like, I was gone. I told you I was gone for a while, and so there's always when you look at Texas, people always go like Texas has a different feel, a different attitude, a different kind of like approach to things. Especially some people call it Texas arrogance. We call it Texas pride, but when you're looking at this business and how you guys do stuff, like what about the fact that it's a Texas winery um, makes it different for you than if per se if it was somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was the heritage of us just being from Texas. Even though all our wines aren't from Texas, this is where I wanted to be. Texas is home. It's like you say, when you're from Texas, I know a lot of people, yeah, they don't really get it when they're
Yeah.
from other places. And I don't know, it's weird because I lived in North Carolina for a while and loved it. Beautiful place.
Yep.
It wasn't Texas,
Yeah.
it wasn't home. You know how it is in the summer here. You're like, wait a minute, why is this home? It's hot.
It's hot. Yeah.
But no, it'll just always be home. I just love Texas. I didn't want to go anywhere else, and but the Hill Country is a fun place. I grew up my summers, spent my summers on Lake Travis in
Yeah.
Austin, so have a lot of history there and love that. So Texas has a lot of different communities that are very cool, and from the Hill Country to lakes to just Houston, which I don't know what you'd call it other than it's a wonderful, big, diverse city, which we love, and it's always been home.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, just like, but I love that point. That's part of what we try to, do with this show is that most people think of Texas and they think of like, and we call it the cowboy experience kind of for like to kind of a play on that. But today, when you look at Texas, and it always has been, but it's so diverse. and depending on where you are, like you go down South Texas, it's one way, the Hill Country is another way, North Texas is something else. You get up in the Panhandles this way. So it's a very unique and special and large, diverse place. Talking about the vineyard a little bit more, or the winery a little bit more. Um, it's fourth. Actually, you invited us here on the 4th of July, so thank you. You guys have a huge party going on here in just a little bit. But when you guys build this out and started thinking about having people come in, what was the goal from a visitor experience standpoint?
That's interesting you say that because we have a bit of a unique setup because we have three different buildings, right, that are all connected. So as we were looking at it, there are different ways of doing this, from your tasting room to, are you going to have people at tables bringing wine out to them, or how do you want it? So for us, I wanted it to be, once you kind of enter our place, you're inside Foyt, meaning when you come in, you can go to the museum, you can get a glass of wine there, you can go to the tasting room and go to the tasting bar, have a tasting. You can go in the library room, which is kind of a really cool room with trophies and helmets, and sit in there and do a blending seminar.
Okay.
We just have a lot of different things we offer. This checkered patio that we love, where we do a lot of events, and then also, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. We wanted you to just come in and almost be like Disneyland for a racing fan, and even if it's not, beautiful to where when the women come in, because obviously you get a lot of bachelorette
Hmm.
parties and things in Fredericksburg. We want them to come in and think the place is beautiful. We also want things for their guys that they're with or whatever to come and say, oh, that's cool, I can check out some cool cars
Yeah.
and cool racing history. So it's really just something for everybody, and hope they enjoy the wines and see our story.
Yeah, it's I what it reminded and it's totally unique, but in theory, what it reminded me of is years ago was Coppola's vineyard up in Cal,
Absolutely, yeah.
because
I
he's got
mean,
all his movie stuff in there,
and
and
that's a hard stigma in the wine business, because obviously Coppola has been very immersed in the wine business. But what I was scared about, and what we didn't want to happen, is saying, oh, it's some famous race car driver throwing his name on a bottle of
yeah.
wine. So you definitely fight that. You want to try to tell your story, because also it was like, when we were talking about making wine and talking about what we call it, I kept thinking about, well, what could we call it? We have other kind of monikers like Coyote and other
Hmm.
things. I was like, my goodness, the Foyt name has 60 years of brand history.
Yeah.
Or just how do
Well,
you
it's got
can't
good brand
top.
history. Like, it's
Yeah,
very
I mean,
well
we
thought of
definitely
and
think so,
recognized.
and we
Yeah.
wanted to pay tribute to all of Dad's accomplishments. So it's worked out well, and I think people enjoy the wine, and so that's what we try to do.
Well, yeah, I think you guys have done a great job of creating an experience for people, and for them to remember, not just coming out here and, hey, having a great glass of wine, but hey, there was a lot of neat stuff that we got to do while we were there, good stuff we got to look at.
I mean, there are some beautiful places, and new places are popping up all the time around
Yeah.
here, and it's fantastic. And it's a great. Everybody really helps each other. Like when we were new and had questions, and a lot of other wineries were super helpful. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's Texas for you, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it
that's
is like
Texas.
it's one of those unique things about the Texas experience is how nice, friendly, and helpful people are. And I think this community, you brought up a good point, from what I've seen about it, is much like some of the other communities that you see in different industries, which is they don't really view each other as competition. They view each other as part of a community, and that community's thriving, they're going to thrive automatically. And you see that with the bed and breakfast community that's out here, the wineries, the vineyards, and then a lot of the other places to stay or experience stuff. So kind of last phase of the conversation is just like, what's next for you guys? I know you're being the entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, right? You've got that mindset of always like, what, kind of like, here's what we're doing. But and I would assume, being a race car driver, like the need for like variety and new stuff is maybe greater than for other people. So what do you guys have on the horizon for the vineyard, and just for the Foyt family business too?
Well, this place is a complete work in progress. I mean, there's a lot of stuff still to happen. When we started, and I had never built something to this magnitude. I had a great partner in it with me. She's also from Houston, and she shared my vision, and we kind of went in this together. And of course, we bought the land, and a week before we started building, major COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what a challenge that was with materials going up in costs like crazy. Everything, it was just a really tough time. And it's definitely delayed our progress. We hoped we'd be at the spot we're at right now 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just pushed everything back. But so it's just been a challenge. You got to keep working through it. And but no, we just want to keep making it better. Making it more fun for people. We have ideas that we want to do. We want to do a cool dog. I mean, people around here love their pets. We love our pets. We want to do a cool kind of dog park out back, so people are welcome to bring their pets. We'll continue to build on the museum, add more and more cars and more things for people to see, and just the whole experience. I mean, that's the goal. We just want people to come have a great experience. And then I still have my real job though. I'm still running the race team, and that's my main job right now, and keeps me super busy. Luckily, I have my man Chris Perry that came. He believed in this and joined with me and started it right when we started. And he was living in North Carolina, and I moved him to Sonoma for about 12 years. And
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so he was out there. He was my man on the ground in Sonoma while we were getting the wines up and going. And now he's moved here and runs this day to day.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I've got help because really in the summer I'm so busy racing.
Yeah.
We are almost week to week in the summer. So that's I want to get back in victory circle for AJ. That's just while he's with us, I want him to experience that again, because that's what he deserves.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I appreciate you having us out, and I think it's exciting. I know all the Horned Frogs that are going to be watching this at some point in time are probably going to want to come down here, or find out if there's going to be like a TCU blend.
Well, I definitely need to have a Horned Frog discount, so I'll add that in. So just say you're a Horned Frog. We'll figure something out.
They'll figure something out for him. Okay. And Colton, we've got this great party that's getting ready to kick off with the band and all that kind of stuff. One of the things we wanted to do before we leave is just kind of take a quick tour around, and so that some of our viewers can kind of see what you've got in here.
Absolutely.
And it's one thing in person. We'll do our best to demonstrate that on camera, and then we're going to enjoy the party after the cameras stop rolling. So thanks for having us.
That sounds great. Let's have some good wine.
All right, let's take a look around.
Okay.
Okay, Larry. So you got us inside the museum part of the winery right now with some of these awesome cars. So maybe just kind of talk us through what some of these are and where they came from.
Absolutely. So this is an old Curtis Craft midget. So this is very typical of what a lot of the young drivers back in the day cut their teeth in. I mean, this is and still midget racing today is huge for young guys starting to learn, especially on the dirt, learning how to throw a car around, car control, just awesome training place for how you get into bigger cars. And
this is so this would be, I would assume, on the less safe side.
They're definitely a little different now. A lot bigger roll cages, a lot of things like that to protect the driver. I mean, safety's come a long way. This was, this car was typical in the 40s and early 50s. So,
that's the one thing you and I were talking before we started rolling again. But one of the things that AJ's gotten to see is just the development of the safety part of all these vehicles, because the vehicles and technology around the vehicles have evolved so much.
Back in AJ's day of racing, when he started, it was very common for once a month a driver you knew got killed.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things he said. He never made friends with many drivers because you didn't know. His rookie year, the one guy he really had befriended was killed.
Yeah.
And it just was something that he said, he even said then he thought about retiring.
Yeah.
He said, maybe this is too tough.
Yeah.
For me. But,
you think about that in other aspects of a sport, another sport, football players don't get up and be like, I'm not going to become friends with the guys on the team because they're probably going to die before we get done playing the season.
Right.
So that's pretty crazy. So,
and that's, and talking about safety, you can view up just to these photos. This is our current car. So you can see how far the safety has come. I mean, now we try to completely protect the driver's head. Everything is made to kind of break away from the car in an impact. So these cars have big impacts at over 200 miles an hour, and the drivers a lot of times pop right out of them. So it's come a long way. It's still dangerous, and you can still have an accident that goes the wrong way. Sometimes you don't know till you hit the wall and how you hit, how it's going to come out. So
that's pretty cool. The next car is a NASCAR.
Yep.
I know enough to know that. And whose vehicle is this one?
Yeah, this is one I drove, but actually before I drove it, There were some pretty famous guys that drove this thing. I think Dale Jr. probably drove this, and Ron Hornaday, because when we came in, we bought a couple cars from them, and so this was one of those. And yeah, a lot of fun racing in the Busch Series, what's Xfinity now.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So in drive, I mean, just kind of as a fan, right? When you're thinking about looking at a car like this or one of these other ones over here that we're going to go look at, the ones that you guys are driving today, like how different is that from a driving standpoint? It's got to be dynamically different.
It's a lot. I mean, you look at the car, obviously a lot more around you, but I think as far as driving, the biggest thing you think of is if you look at a NASCAR, the engine's in the front.
Yeah.
When you look at an open wheel car or an Indy car, the engine's in the rear. So what that does is that weight distribution makes a huge dynamic on how you drive the car.
Okay.
So you're a lot of time driving, you're balancing weight and how it's working with the tires, and so without getting into too much detail, that's what front end and the rear engine's a big difference.
So a car like this is going to average what speed around the track?
Oh, I think if you take like an Indianapolis Motor Speedway, something like that, I'd say these cars qualifying are probably in the around 190 miles an hour.
Okay.
180s, 190, where an Indy car with the added ground effects and less weight, Indy car can do 230.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just from a professional sports standpoint, I think that's interesting because you're talking about this. It's the same sport in racing, but it's not the same sport, right? You're driving two different cars, different styles of track, different styles of racing. Yet one guy has been able to do both of those or multiple ones of those, or you're not just one. But
yeah, no, and you're right.
It's like it's almost like a Michael Jordan playing two sports.
Yes.
It's not apples and apples. So
AJ was one of the few guys who really succeeded in anything he got in, and that's part of his legacy for sure. He could drive anything with four wheels.
That, to me, that's one of the most remarkable parts about his story. And I know you've raced a bunch of different cars too, so it's not like it's not apples to apples. So
no, but the success he had in all of them is just impressive.
Yeah, unbelievable
for sure.
All right, we got a space vehicle over here.
Yeah.
So what's the story with this one?
This thing is really special to us. It's hard to think that something that looks like this, was built in the 80s, but it was. And it was actually a General Motors project with Oldsmobile, and it was, if today's day and age, the new technology is electric, right? This was just going to a smaller engine, smaller volume engine, so they called it the Quad 4.
Okay.
And they just wanted to make big speed out of a small package, and that's what they did. So they went to Fort Stockton, Texas, big oval track, and set what they call the closed course speed record, which is how fast you go in an oval. So it's not just in a straight line; you have to be turning.
Yeah.
And that's where, you got the speeds of it of well over 250 miles an hour. So. Pretty awesome.
And that was in 87?
As in the late 80s.
Yeah. Wow. That's impressive. All right. And then what might possibly be the sexiest car in the room?
This thing is sexy. You look at the cockpit, it's hard to think that Dad ever fit in there, to be honest. I mean, he just from racing, his shoulders were so big.
Yeah.
But this was the last car he ever did a lap in at Indianapolis. He retired qualifying morning in '93, and they let him take one lap to wave goodbye to everybody and say goodbye. And this was the car he did it in, and he was very fast. He would have had no trouble being up front in the race, but he just felt like it was time to retire and focus on the business. And this car is so sleek and so sporty. The cars are actually now a little bit bigger, believe it or not, just because of safety.
Yeah.
We've just learned about absorbing energy by putting more padding around the driver, putting things like that. So
important stuff.
These things were definitely slick, but they hurt a lot of drivers.
Yep.
Back in the day as well.
Well, I again appreciate you having us out. Thanks for showing us through the part of the museum.
Absolutely, yeah.
And letting us kind of spend some time with what many would consider race car and Texas royalty. And so we wish you a lot of success here at the Vineyard. If you're making a trip to Texas, or if you're out towards the Hill Country, make sure you stop by Foyt Wineries and Museum out here. It's a great location, great wine, and a lot of fun to come out to. Larry, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank
We'll have to have
you.
you guys back on later when you get the
Enjoyed
vineyard
it.
going.
We
All this
will,
stuff.
and come to a race sometime.
Yeah,
and,
that'd be great.
And if you come by the winery, tell me you're a horn frog. We'll hook.
There you go. All you TCU people out there, come on down and make a visit. So we'll see you next time on the Cowboy Experience. Thanks for joining us. If you like the show, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and let everybody know we're here. Have a good one.